All right, guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of A to Z of Python. Today, we'll be talking about something that is really interesting and something that you'll use a lot, and you may not give a lot of thought to, but you should, and that is string formatting. And string formatting, a lot of you might think of it as, you want to print something out, maybe to the terminal, and you want it to look a particular way, and you maybe center it or whatever it is. And that's true. You can do a lot of actual visual formatting with the string formatting, but you can also save yourself a lot of code by substituting in things here and there. And that's where it really comes into its own. So we're going to go over quite a few examples today. Hopefully, you pick up something new. And I would like to start by talking about the changes that have been made to string formatting in Python. Now, if you've been in it for a while, Python, I guess probably 2.6 and earlier, something like that, used a very particular syntax for string formatting. And that has really changed since, I believe, 2.7 and, of course, in Python 3. And you will see a lot of people answering questions or making suggestions on how to format strings using the classic format. But I would recommend that you don't do that, that you learn and adopt the new methods for string formatting. I would assume that at some point the older versions would probably be deprecated. And yeah, it's just good to stay current. So I'm going to show at the beginning sort of the old and the new versions of quite a few examples, and then we'll just kind of go forward with the new examples once we're clear on what the differences are. So let's just jump right into it, and we'll create a string, and we'll make it say winner with an exclamation point. So this is really cool. Maybe you want to print this out. You're writing a little game script or something like that, and instead of just printing winner, you want it to have like a cool header spacer or something like that. So we can do some really simple string formatting. And the old school way would be to print the string. So let's say we want to center it and we want to surround it by dashes, so it makes like a line break. So we can do s.center, and that's going to center the string, but we can surround it by special characters if we want. So in this case, we could make it 50 of the dashes, and if we run this, you'll see that it prints out 50 character wide string with winner in the center, and it's surrounded by dashes to fill out the rest of the spaces. So that's pretty cool, and you can see how that would be like a nice little way to emphasize that someone won the game. Instead of just printing winner over on the side, you could make it show up nice and big with a little bit of emphasis on the side. So that's how you would do it in the traditional old school sense of things. But the new method is by calling the format method on the string itself. So the way that you do that is you pretty much use these brackets and then a dot format. And this means that anything inside the brackets will utilize whatever's inside the format method. Okay, so to just kind of show you how it works in this example, you're going to do something that looks kind of cryptic, but we create the string that we want to print. And inside these curly braces, we're going to put the specifications of what will be subbed in. Okay, so that's kind of like whatever is in here sort of goes down here. And for some of the string formatting, it's kind of weird at first, but you put the colon, you put the character that you want, and then the caret symbol and the number of times. And the caret symbol in this particular example, you'd have to read the docs to know this, but that means center. Okay, so it means 50 centered dashes, if that makes sense. And that's going to be all for that, and we'll do dot format and then the string in question. And if we run this, you'll see they print the same exact thing. So this is the new format, this is the old format. And this is a really complicated looking example because this isn't intuitive, but that's just the way it works. So you start with the colon, you put your characters that you want as padding, you put the actual alignment, and then you put the width of the formatted string. Okay, so there you go. So that's how that works. We can also do, in the old school style, a right justification. So rjust 50, and then let's say we just want to use spaces this time to actually get it spaced out. So there you go. So 50 characters wide, and it's right justified. So in this case, the old school actually is maybe a little more intuitive, but don't let that stop you from using the new version, because it's just going to be something that you need to get used to. So, but once you do this, it kind of starts to look the same. All right, so it starts out the same as the center formatting, and we'll just use no special characters here, and a default to spaces. Okay, so instead of putting a dash here like we did above, we'll just leave it blank. And in this case, to get right justified, we use the right arrow, and we use our number. Okay, dot format s. Hopefully, after seeing the second example, it makes a little more sense. So this is center, this is right, and we can run this, and you see the same thing. All right, so let's just keep going here. So do print s.ljust for left justification, and do 50. And in this case, we'll use a special character like a star so that you can see that it is, in fact, justifying it with the spacers here. Otherwise, you just have blank space if you didn't put this in here. And to do this, you can probably guess what this is going to look like by now, because it's just like the other ones, except we're going to do a star here, or we had a dash up above. We're going to use star so it matches the previous example, and then we're going to use the less than sign, 50 dot format s. And if you run this, there you go. All right, so these are the old ones, these are the new ones, and if you notice, you're essentially just calling the format method with the substitution inside the brackets there, or inside the parentheses. So those are some basic just alignment examples, but a lot of times you want to actually sub in some sort of a substitution. You want to sub in some variables or whatever values, and you will be used to seeing it something like print, and then we'll put a string in here and we'll say good, and we'll say we want to say good morning, happy to see you, and we're going to sub in morning and happy. So what you would do is you would see this percent %s, and these are, so put two of them, so good morning blank blank to see you. And what happens is these are the indicators of what's going to be subbed in, and it's the percent %s means it will be treated as a string. And we're going to put the percent sign there for some reason. That's just the way it is. And then we'll put in our values that we'll sub in. So do morning and happy, and that should just about do it. Okay, so it says good morning, happy to see you. And the kind of the thing that's, I think the reason that we got away from this in the first place is that you have to specify the type, and that can be sort of obnoxious because maybe you don't know, or it's just you have to remember what each type is, and it kind of becomes a lot to work with. So in the new format, you'll see that the types are sort of automatically assigned for you, and there's a little bit of intelligence built in, which really kind of simplifies the process. So we start the same way, but instead of using percent %s, we're going to use sets of curly braces, and this will be the indication of where we'll sub things in. All right, so otherwise that looks the same. And then we do dot format, just like in the previous examples, and we'll put in morning and happy, and you can run this, and there you go. All right, so you could see here we have to specify the type, which is kind of a pain, and they have this sort of strange key there that's like, the percent. That doesn't really make sense. So this is much more intuitive. It's pretty much anywhere you want to sub something in, just use the curly braces, and then in the format, make sure that you either manually supply the values to be subbed in, or that you pass it a list or something like that. And we'll go into some more examples here. But it's interesting to know that what's happening here is these actually have an index value, and it defaults to just sort of an incremental value. So the first one is index 0, and the second one is index 1, and so on and so forth. And then inside here, this is treated as item 0 and item 1. So that's how it knows which one to sub in. And so to kind of show you how you can manipulate that to do different things, let's do just a simple example where we take a string and we just put in, say, 4 sets of curly braces, and then we do dot format, and we put in the cardinal direction. So we had north, east, what do we got? South and west. Okay, there you go. Hard to talk and type at the same time. So we can run this, and I blew something up here. Let's see. That looks good. And I gotta have another parenthesis there, I believe. Nope. Let's see. Print. That's what it is. Okay, finally. So you can see here that there's 4 of these, and there's 4 values, and they're subbed in the order that they're put in to the format method. But what we could do is, if we wanted to copy this and paste it in and specify, okay, so 3, 2, 1, and 0, what would happen is it should go in, and this is 0, 1, 2, 3. It should print them in reverse order. So we can specify the index in here, and there you go. So west, south, east, north. So again, just with basically by specifying the index, we can have a little more control over our string formatting. And that's really just to show you that it sort of intuitively puts in the index. So they are there even if you leave them out. It's just kind of done in the background for you. So that's pretty cool. But that's really pretty basic, right? So let's say that we want to get a little more fancy with what we're doing here. So let's do something like, let's see, let's create a dictionary, and we'll call it student, and we'll put their name is, say, Alex, and their age is 13, and let's see what else. They maybe like what school they go to. All right, so school, and let's just like maybe Reed Middle School, anything, whatever. Okay, so there's our dictionary, and the way you used to do it is you would do, so the percent and S, okay, for like to sub in the string, but what we need to do is put the key in, the dictionary key. So we'll do name there. Okay, so that looks kind of confusing. And we need to make sure this is actually a string. So let's put our quotes on there. Okay, so there we go. So we have the percent S with the name subbed in there. And we'll do age. Let's see. I'm going to do percent. And we'll do age. Now, it's actually integer, so you can't put %s here, so you have to do 0D to specify that it's a number. And then we'll do attending is attending, and then it's another %s, but it's school, and that's it. And then the %sign, and we'll do student. Okay, so that was kind of a bear there, but essentially what we're doing is we've got these key value pairs, and the key is name, age, and school. So we have name, age, and school, and it's specified as a string, the integer here and the string. And we run this. Alex, age 13, is attending Reed Middle School. So that's pretty neat. That's the old method. It's a little bit more straightforward with the new method. So what we're going to do is just use the curly braces and specify the key inside of that. So name, and let's see, age is attending school. Now that's a lot easier to read if you ask me. Like, that makes way more sense than the old method. It's a lot cleaner. It's a lot more straightforward. And we'll do dot format. And like a lot of times in Python, when you're passing in a dictionary, you're going to put the double star and put student, and that's your kwargs. If you've seen that video, the args and kwargs, and we did that. The keyword arguments allows you to pass in a dictionary of whatever size, and it will attempt to extract out the keys based on whatever's in your string here. So when we run that, same result, a lot easier to read. I would definitely recommend the new approach to this, because this just looks really confusing, and this is very clean. So when you're passing in a dictionary, it's essentially treated as a keyword argument, and you actually see that when you call the method. You see it calls itself, but you can also pass in arguments or keyword arguments. So that means essentially like a list or a dictionary. Okay, so that's how you would pass in dictionaries to format your string, and that's really pretty cool. So that's nice. What if we wanted to use a list? Okay, that's very similar. So just do names, and we'll do Bob, John, and Todd. So we can do print. I'll just do something like they're on a game show. Like today's contestants are, and again, just your braces. There, and there. Dot format. And in this case, it's going to be, it's even suggesting that we pass in args because it's expecting a list. And that's what we'll do. So we'll put the star, we'll put names, and when we run this, there you go. So that's how to pass in a list. Just use the single star, and for a dictionary, use the double star, and that'll get you what you're looking for. Now, you can also manually assign these, so we could do print something like the toy. I always forget to put the quotes in there. Okay, so the toy is color dot format, and what we could do is essentially put in like some key value pairs here essentially, and it's going to be toy equals ball, and color equals red, and we can run this, and it says the ball is red. Okay, so we can specify these manually, and that's pretty cool. So that's called named arguments. And we can also use tuples, so it can kind of go as deep as you want. Tuples are pretty interesting. So let's say we want to do, we have like a bingo game, and in this bingo game, we have a list of tuples, and the first tuple is the row, or the column, excuse me, and it's going to be B, and the number is 16, and then we're going to have a sentence that says if you have this number, you're the winner. So we're going to use another one, and we're going to put in number and winner. So this is actually a little more complicated because it's a list of tuples, which is pretty nifty. And this gets sort of nasty pretty quick, but hang in there because it shows how complicated it can get, but that if you just think it through, it'll work out just fine. So we're going to say the next number is, all right. So again, don't forget your quotes there. And I'm just coding like dirt today, but that's okay. There we go. So it says the next number is, and what we need to do is specify the index, and we also need to specify the location. So the index in the list and the index in the tuple itself. So we're going to have 3 items, and the reason that is what we're going to do is we're going to do dot format, and we're going to sub in bingo. And so what ends up happening when we pass this in, bingo itself is the 0th item that's passed in. So we have to reference that. So this represents the actual variable itself, bingo, and then we need to specify the list index and the tuple index, and that's where it starts to look a little confusing. But the list index in this case would be 0 because it's the first item, so we'll do that. And then B is the 0th item in that tuple, so we'll do it like that. Okay, so that should give us B. And then we want 16, and we want them put right next to each other, so we'll just start a whole new one right next to it. And it's item 0, which is bingo. Okay, so that refers to the first item in this area here. And then we have the first item in the list, second item in the tuple. So first item in the list is index 0. Second item in the tuple here is index 1. Okay, because remember, starting at 0. And there you go. So that should print the next number is B16. Okay, so we run that here. So that's good. And we can say if you have this, okay, we want to say number. So again, this is going to start with the curly braces and a 0 because we're talking about bingo here. So if we had multiple items here, like whatever it is, this would be 1, okay, the very first thing, but we don't, so it's 0. So 0, so now we've referenced bingo, and then we need to reference the second tuple in the list, so we're going to have a 1, and we want to reference the first item in this tuple, so we're going to have a 0. Okay, so that should say if you have this number, and it does, we'll put you may be the, and we want to say winner. So one more time, 0 for bingo, and 1 for the second item, the second tuple, and then 1 for the second item inside the tuple. And run that. It says the next number is B16. If you have this number, you may be the winner. And that's what you're going to do here and here to extract the information that you want out of this list of tuples. But as you see, the point of this is that you can get as deep as you want, and the formatting is fortunately so straightforward. It's really, really easy. I mean, this is no more complex than any of the examples. All we had to do essentially was reference a few indexes, and we got the results that we wanted, but really not complicated at all once you get the basic understanding of that down. That's really probably the most complex example that we'll cover. But there's some other stuff that you can do So, like I said, it does understand the format of the data that you're passing in. Sometimes you want to specify a little bit of output formatting. And so let's say this is kind of a neat one. If we have a, let's say dot format, and we have this really long number, right? And we want to add in commas in the thousands place. Well, what we can do is we can do like we always do, start with the string and the curly braces and our colon, and just put a comma in there. And when we run that, oh, hold on. Let's see, what am I missing? Something here. I don't know, that looks pretty good to me. Let's try it again. Let's see, print here. All right. We're coding for real here, so sometimes stuff blows up on you. There you go. Must have had a typo in there somewhere, but there you go. So that's a pretty slick little thing to know there, that if you want to print out like a long number and you want to have it just automatically put in the appropriate commas for you, well, there you go. That's pretty nifty. So we got that one. What else do we have? We can do percentages. So let's actually create something called percent, and we'll just make it some, like whatever, some number divided by something else. So this will actually print that out. All right, so that prints this really, really long float, and that's not ideal. That's really not what we're looking for. So let's actually format that. So we'll do dot format percent, and the format that we want is going to be, this is actually going to look pretty familiar to you. It's going to be dot colon dot 2f, and that's sort of a carryover, the dot 2f. That's going to give us 2 decimal places. And so this is the give me the percentage with 2 decimal places format. And I could even slip in the dollar sign, or excuse me, the percent sign there. But this is different than the percent in the old format where you had to put percent and then whatever you were going to format. This is actually just to be printed out. Okay, so that's how you can do that. So we can do some string formatting that way. We can also do date time. So if I want to import date time, I can do like a date time dot date time and put in the date. So 2016, what is today? 6/29. Let's say it's like 11:15 in the morning. So 6/29, 11:15. And that will make that a datetime object. And then we can do print. And we'll do something like, we'll just follow that format. So we'll do year. And this is just basic string formatting, or datetime formatting. So if you're not familiar with this, you might want to go check that out. Hopefully by this point you're familiar. If not, don't worry about it. All right, so we're going to do H. I think it's M, and should be capital S. S. Okay, hopefully that's right. And format D. And looks like it's going to blow up. Yeah, so don't forget your colon, or it's going to do that. There we go. All right. So that's how you can do datetime formatting with the new format. It's pretty easy. And so you can do like just about any kind of formatting that you could think of. You can sub in functions in here. So like the length of an object. So you could print out like the length of a string. You can access methods if you want to. And that's pretty cool. But what we can also do sort of as the final thing here before we end this is something called templating. And this can help you if you have a lot of a lot of strings that you want to manipulate. So you can really reduce sort of your code. And what we're going to do is create something like, let's do another list of tuples. And I actually got this typed in already because this would take a while. But there you go. So here's a list of states and their capitals. So using US states and their corresponding capitals. And what I'm going to do is do from string import template. So you have to actually import this in. It isn't already there. And what we're going to do is create a template. So you're going to call this template. And the way that you do the template is you type in a string, and inside that string, any word that's prefaced with a $sign will actually be an identifier that will be subbed out. So we'll do the capital of $state is $capital. And that's going to mean that when we call this template, we have to pass in a state and a capital, and it'll get subbed in for us. So since we have a list, let's write a little for loop to kind of automate this. So for T for tuple in states, print, we're going to call the substitute method on the template object here. Okay, so S is the template with this information, so we're going to call s.substitute. And we have to tell it what we're subbing in. And inside this substitute method, we have to pass both of the values that we want to go in and replace these identifiers. So since we know that it's going to be T, all right, and they're going to be tuples, so it's going to be T0 and T1. So what we'll do state equals T0. So that's going to access the first item in each tuple as it loops through. And then we'll have capital equals T1. And let's run this. So there you go. So that was pretty simple. Hopefully that makes sense. We're just subbing in the template where the identifiers are, and we're looping through and doing it automatically. So templates are pretty cool, something that maybe you didn't know about. Hopefully in this video you've seen something that you haven't seen before and it was worth your while. So that sums it up, and that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Otherwise, thanks for watching.